about. Yeah, he's in Berkeley still, but he's still with
Some sponsors in it. Haven't been in a long time, but my friend. That's a good job.
How are you?
Hello.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Can I ask you to come on in and take your seats so we can begin the programming? Good evening. My name is Peter Lowett, and I am the great good fortune to be chair of the board of New Ecology, Inc. We have a number of our other board members here. I'll just ask you to stand up and be recognized. Lindsay Sands, Carrie Hewitt, and Becky Reagan. Now, I would be remiss if I didn't thank the staff for the tremendous work that they've done in pulling this event together. So can you join me in a big thank you to Monica and the staff? And a special thanks goes out to Ed for his intrepid and inspired leadership in building such a great team here at New Ecology. It all began with Bill Shutkin, who's here to help get this party started. Bill, come on up.
Thank you so much, Peter. It's great to see Peter and now Madeline Fraser Cook, who I think was our third employee, and so many familiar faces. Joe Kreisberg, who I haven't seen in 15 or 20 years, or whatever it is. Joe, great to see you. Gosh, is that Matt next to you, Joe? Great to see you, Matt. It's really fun and inspiring for me to come back and see folks. And humbling to recognize that probably almost no one else in this room knows who the heck I am. Because I got out of town. I got out of Dodge in 2004. And was just so pleased to keep in touch and see what's going on. So I'm going to say a few remarks and then turn it over to Becky. But really I'm here at the discretion of Ed and staff to just share a little bit on the founding days and years of New Ecology. My tenure was exactly 5 years as founder and first president. I guess as an entrepreneur, what I sort of excel at doing is getting things started and then hoping others will succeed in taking the baton. And I'm so delighted to see how Ed and you all have done that. As Peter noted, I founded New Ecology in 1999 as a bookend to the first nonprofit that I had co-founded based in Roxbury called Alternatives for Community and Environment, an environmental justice law center that my colleague Charlie Lord and I founded in 1993. And New Ecology was founded as the bookend really to shift from fighting bad projects, development projects, or LULUs, locally undesirable land use projects of the sort that we dealt with and often dealt with effectively at ACE, to a different kind of organization, a planning organization or planning-based, one that instead of fighting projects, bad projects, was about promoting good ones, green ones, affordable ones, in those very self-same communities like Roxbury and Dorchester and East Boston and Lawrence and Lowell. Brownfields redevelopment, green buildings, transit-oriented development, sustainable cities. These ideas were starting to gain a foothold in many US cities by the late 90s. And NEI was designed and launched to bring those ideas here to Boston, to Somerville, to Lowell, to Lawrence. And to do so really in partnership with organizations, many of which are represented here tonight, allies really, like EPA New England and John DeVillers, who was such a great friend and ally early on, like MACDC and Joe Kreisberg, like Matt and LISC, the Local Initiative Support Corporation, and a host of so many others, and forgive me if I fail to mention who you are. The idea of a new ecology was essentially an urban ecology, an environmentalism committed to community development and to social justice, to making cities greener and more inclusive at the same time, both and, not either or. We started in 1998, actually in December of 1998, not 1999, with a $100,000 grant from the Mabel Louise Riley Foundation. And that grant was made possible by two early champions. One, a Riley board member named Bob Holmes, and the other, a great friend of mine and of New Ecology, Greg Watson, both of whom understood that low-income neighborhoods could be green neighborhoods, had all the right ingredients, but lacked the planning, design, and policy resources. Following Riley's lead, other foundations quickly jumped on board, like the Barr Foundation, the Jesse B. Koch Charitable Trust, the Merck Family Fund, and the Idelson Foundation. And EPA New England really stepped up, thanks to John, as a big advocate of environmental justice and sustainability with a fairly significant 3-year grant as part of their then new Brownfield Showcase Community Program. NEI's early directors and advisors were truly outstanding. They included Becky Regan, two wonderful colleagues who were just here sharing a beer with us, Seth Jaffe and Ned Abelson, Gloria Cross Imwase, Doug Foy, Greg Watson, Deval Patrick, and Scott Harshbarger. With offices in the Greenworks building in East Cambridge, our first hire was a woman named Kit Perkins. How many of you in the room know or remember Kit? I think Kit, Peter, brought you to us, as we were just saying. And shortly after Kit was Madeline Fraser Cook, who's right up here in the front of the room. Kit had been a community developer at the Jamaica Plain Neighborhood Development Corporation, who, like me, was an avid telemark skier and a part-time Vermonter, so I figured that was a perfect match. Within a matter of months, we had more work than we could handle in 1999, so we started hiring young planners right out of MIT's Department of Urban Studies and Planning, like Madeline, where I had the privilege of teaching for almost 10 years, thanks to Larry Susskind and Vish Shanyal, two other great supporters of ours. And it was an early partnership, again, that helped us grow. In 2000, NEI hosted the first of what would become 5 annual conferences, the so-called Regional Sustainable Development Forums at MIT, featuring keynotes like Senator John Kerry and showcasing innovative sustainable development projects and strategies. I'm proud to say, and I think this is a historical fact, that Zipcar, based in Cambridge, debuted at our very first forum in 2000. Madeline, I think you were probably responsible for bringing Robin Chase and Zipcar to MIT and to the forum at a time when the idea of car sharing was not just radical, it was seen as ludicrous. Many of our NEI interns and staff went on to become leaders in the field, like Madeline Fraser Cook and Tricia Miller and Ariel Rosenberg-Marin and Will Bradshaw. Each has made their mark in this field in a really big way. 5 years later, after 1999, with 2 very young children, both born in Cambridge, and 2 growing nonprofits under my belt, I left Cambridge and NEI to run a foundation based in Vermont and Boulder, Colorado. It was a big leap, but I knew I was leaving the organization in not just solid hands, but great hands with Ed Connolly. And with Becky, on the board, I knew this was built now to last. I'm so grateful and proud of what we started, and where you, Ed, and Becky, and all of the folks in this room have taken New Ecology. And thank you so much for including me tonight. And with that, Becky Regan, now 20-year board member and great friend and ally to the cause. Becky.
Thank you so much. Wow, there's so many faces I know here and so many I don't, so that's both exciting. One must recall, as Bill said, that NEI was just a crazy Bill Shutkin idea, and the board, well, we were just friends of Bill's, swept up in this passion with a shared desire to address environmental injustice. We were enthusiastic and intrigued by what we might actually be able to accomplish together, but skeptical given the nascent field. After all, the terms brownfields and greenfields were still novelties. We were a ragtag bunch of tree huggers in business suits, convinced he was onto something. What Bill had was a vision, aspiration, and passion. What we found in Ed were gravitas, tenacity, and a sense of how we could actually pull this off and more. Before Ed, we talked about disruptive innovation to achieve energy efficiencies in low-income neighborhoods and agreed on our commitments to greening affordable housing. With Ed, we learned that building science and benchmarking, high-quality advising, and monitoring operations were the way to advance the field. Many of you will remember a few of our early efforts, including the Regional Sustainable Development Forums, the Green Building Production Network, publishing the cost benefits of greening affordable housing, Building Well, We Go Wise, and new partnerships with Elevate, LISC, HUD, Enterprise, the LEAN program, MIT DUSP, and grants from MacArthur, Barr, JPB, Home Depot, and many more. Ed focused on one project at a time, while at each board meeting we struggled to figure out how we could make ends meet and advance the impact of our work. He navigated NEI through tricky waters, the founder's exit, an identity crisis relating to our core customers, the Great Recession, pricing our services, expanding our services, quietly and steadily moving the organization through stage after stage of growth. Daily pressures included grant applications, board members constantly pushing to diversify work and increase revenue on a shoestring budget with a small team. That might have been me. It was really fun going down memory lane on this. When Ed told me it's been 20 years, I was like, that can't possibly be true. As NEI grew from concept to company, today 40 employees. There were 2 in 1999. You added engineers and scientists, experts in building technology, M&O experts, and those 2 mad engineers in the basement, and Josh, working on remote monitoring systems. Truly, truly cutting-edge technology. If you could just imagine this conversation in the first year of our board. Never. None of this couldn't have happened without Lauren Bauman, who I know is not here tonight, navigating right alongside with you. In all of this nimble adaptation, it has always been in the service of the moral call embedded in Bill's original vision. And sometimes a good mission produces outcomes beyond its own imagining. The countless number of young lives inspired by NEI, from the MIT DUSP and engineering programs, interns and architects, contractors, property managers and owners, and board members who have learned so much from this meaningful work. In fact, the year that New Ecology was created, my oldest daughter, Kate, was born. And this summer, 20 years later, through the CEC program, she interned at New Ecology, completing data analysis and writing case studies to highlight NEI's impact. The next generation is irresistibly drawn to NEI's work. Kate is my daughter, is currently at the bottom of the world in Ushuaia, Argentina, and Antarctica, studying climate change and doing research. As we look to the future as an organization and take risks and set goals, creating access and inspiration for our youth is central to our chance at success. I want to close on a more personal note of gratitude for the opportunity to be a colleague as a board member in this journey. Ed, you are earnest, compassionate, and kind. You inspire your staff and board. You lead by example, and your work is never about ego. Your trademark laugh, engagement with the present, and loving spirit are qualities I have so enjoyed over the years. Congratulations to NEI, and cheers to 20 more.
And what do you get for the man who has everything? NEI swag. Well, I don't know if the projector's turned off, or let's see. Well, another day, Josh. Well, thank you so much, Becky and Bill, for laying out where we came from, and for the kind words. I'm really so grateful for all the support that I've gotten over the years to do this, and I'm actually really self-conscious at receiving so much of the credit, because what we've really tried to do at New Ecology is not really about individual achievement. It's about success through collective action. We know that the work that we're doing requires us to really assemble and motivate and nurture a whole team of people, as Becky and Bill described. People that are committed and passionate and unafraid to take risks and really enjoy walking on the road less traveled. The partners that are in this room have been instrumental and just so important in getting anything done. We have to regularly remind ourselves of why we're doing this, and Bill so well pointed out the fundamental foundational issues of the need for equity and justice and stewardship in all of our work. So we also have to remind ourselves all the time that a lot of people talk about this stuff, but that it's just all theory unless you actually do it. So one of the advantages of getting older and staying in a job for 15 years is that it gives you some perspective on what's happened over time. I was really hoping that I would have reached enlightenment by now, or at least gain some wisdom, but I don't know about that, but I do have some perspective. So, you know, in the days that we're living in, when we're getting negative news all the time, it's easy to think that we're never making progress on anything. But when you have a chance to look back over 15 years, you look from a perch and you say, wow, a lot really has happened. So a couple weeks ago, I had a chance to pause and take this longer view, and I'd like to share a little bit of what that was like. We're involved in a passive house project in Cambridge, where we're assisting one of our partners, Homeowners Rehab, build the first multifamily passive house in Massachusetts, a 90-plus unit building. This is just the kind of example of collaboration that I'm talking about. We have Homeowners Rehab, who's one of the most progressive CDCs in the country and has built some of the best housing. We know Jane Carbone, who's been there for longer than I've been here, has just passionately and persistently pushed these issues and made their organization into a champion. We have general contractor, NEI General Contracting, who we know as the other NEI. who not only have embraced the future and how the possibility of it really advancing advanced building techniques, but they've also been so generous to us in that they're our platinum sponsor for tonight. We have Icon Architecture, another sponsor who's been really instrumental in pushing the passive houses and doing the design work necessary to make this stuff happen. So this building has been so high profile that people have been asking for tours of it nonstop, and everybody's getting tired of touring people around it. I went on one of these tours because now that the organization's so big, they don't let me in the field anymore. And we had a tour with a whole bunch of passive house folks, and as the crowd was dwindling, Jane Carbone and I were under the podium at where the parking spaces are going to be, and we just sat there and thought, wow, what a ride this has been, like how much has changed in 15, 20 years. So some of the things we talked about are that when I first started here, a green building strategy was based on donuts. It was like if you brought donuts to the job site, you might be able to get some people to do air sealing. Now we have 8 passive house projects, 8 multifamily affordable passive house projects underway right now. I think Tom told me we just got another one, so we might have 9. And that's kind of the pace that it's happening, that this is growing quite rapidly. We've been able to help owners reduce energy use in affordable multifamily buildings by as much as 60% on a budget. Maloney Properties, who's we've worked with quite a while, has passionately started to implement this in a broader swath of their portfolio. Bill and Becky mentioned MIT interns. One of my apocryphal stories was when I first got there, I asked these MIT interns, how should these multifamily buildings be performing? Does anybody know what a good building is and what a bad building is? And they went scurrying back to the campus and came back and said no. So we had to develop WeGoWise to figure that out, and we did it. And Dan and the team from WeGoWise are here tonight. Now we have a bunch of staff that will bore you to tears talking about BTU per square foot per heating degree day. But benchmarking has become a standard practice, and we were part of developing that. And things like the ordinances in New York and Boston and other cities that are requiring buildings to measure their performance and to do something about it, we feel like we had something to do with that. If we had the slides working, we do. All right, well, I was going to show you this crazy graph of hot water, of incoming temperatures to hot water systems. Henry Harvey, our director of engineering, is presenting at a passive house conference on the fact that nobody understands how cold the water is coming into buildings. So that's the kind of stuff that we are now really talking about when we used to be talking about donuts. Years ago, we were just guessing that green building would have health benefits for the residents. Everybody thought it made sense, but we had no proof. Thanks to working with the Harvard School of Public Health, we've measured the health outcomes of people that are living in green public housing, and have shown that the asthma rates of the kids have gone way down. They're missing less school, they're going to the emergency room less, they're going to the doctor's office less. So we've always been hopeful that we could really meet the mission that Bill and the founding board set out of taking the benefits of greening and making sure they weren't only for the rich. But now we're proud to say that if you look around the room, the affordable housing community, it was really the leaders in green development in the country. That much of the housing that poor folks are getting in many cities is now healthier, more resilient, more efficient than the market rate projects in the same city. evidence of this continuing and growing. Just this week, LISC and MACDC put together an energy cohort for CDC members, which parallels and was foreshadowed by the Green CDC movement we started 20 years ago. There were overflow crowd demanding more information, better information. Action for Boston Community Development has managed to retrofit hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of units. We've alone worked on 10,000 units with them. Go, Josh. So one other thing that Jane and I were reflecting on was that we were afraid to mention climate change to clients not too long ago. Not even really 15 years ago, like 3 years ago. And now we're having discussions about climate adaptation and resiliency in almost every project that we do. It's become a central part of what we're doing. So I'm cautiously optimistic that we can make the changes that we really want to see happen over the next 10 years. We have some small efforts to do, like retrofitting 80,000 residential buildings in Boston to make them zero net energy. But I think we're on the path to do it. I think we've been able to help lay the foundation for this to happen. And if you look around the room and you see the amazing and dedicated people that are here, the NEI staff, the sponsors of the event, our board of directors, our partners in government, the charitable foundations, and the amazing community of architects and contractors and developers that we get to work with every day. I think this is really going to happen. Massachusetts is way ahead of the rest of the country, but it's really incumbent upon us to keep leading. So I don't know if this is going to work. Let's see. There we go. That's homeowners rehab. That's incoming water temperatures to buildings all across the state. There, the green bars are the asthma rates in the green building versus the black bars, the control group. This is the typical kind of stuff that we're seeing being built now for low-income folks. And there's something about the resilience tool that we helped develop with Enterprise Community Partners that's being used in DC to assess a lot of their properties. So I was going to stop here and turn it over to Lauren, who's been my partner in this work for 14 of the 15 years I've been here. But unfortunately, Lauren's daughter had an emergency tonsillectomy this morning, and she's fine. So I'll keep talking. You know, Lauren is such an amazing partner, and absolutely, without a doubt, I would say none of this would have happened if we hadn't been working together for so long. I was thinking of what I should say about her, and I thought we should take a video of her in a room with contractors and show it to all young girls in high school. So. So the last things I want to say are like, so how have we done this? Like, how has a group of now 40 people been able to have an impact where we've worked on over 150,000 units of green affordable housing in the 15 years that I've been here? So I don't think there's one way that this has happened, but I think there's some characteristics that we built at New Ecology that I just want to point out. And those characteristics, I would say, are a combination of humility, curiosity, persistence, and passion. So in terms of humility, we've approached all of this work for the whole 20 years, not trying to say that we know the answers to anything, but to be listening and to try to understand what the problems are that we've been trying to solve and how we could best solve those problems. So this process that we've established where we're trying to understand the problems that all of you are facing in trying to build housing has really helped us. So staying humble, knowing that we don't know everything, we're never going to know everything, and not being strident, not being absolutist about what we're trying to do has been one of the hallmarks of how we've done this. In terms of curiosity, we know that this field is constantly evolving. Our greatest fear, Lauren and I talk about this all the time, are that one of you is going to read something on a web page and ask us about it tomorrow, and we have no idea what you're talking about. So staying curious, staying on top of things, but always wanting to learn, never being satisfied that we know enough and that we have to keep pushing this. We purposely hire really smart, really curious, really dedicated people to New Ecology, and we've created an atmosphere where they can thrive, and then we just turn them loose, and I think that's a big reason for what we've been talking about tonight. In terms of persistence, I mean, Jeannie, my wife, is here in the front row. She would tell you I'm pretty damn stubborn. So, we know that this is really a long game. Like if we thought we could change all of this and instantly cure inequity or cure homelessness or cure the climate problem in a day, we would fail. So we've learned that we have to prove that this stuff works, and that's all the discussion that we've had about data and about case studies and about testimonials from folks. So staying at it is a big part of it. And finally, passion. I mean, we love what we do. I still love what I do. Our staff really loves what we do. We continuously deliver, great work, and we back up that passion with knowledge and practicality. So if that's, those are like, I was thinking what my grandmother would say when she's Sicilian woman who taught me how to cook, and she would say, all you need is a few ingredients. It's just how you mix them together that results in whether you get a good meal or not. So, she taught me sometimes you have to turn up the heat, sometimes you lower it, sometimes you add some salt. But I think that's how we've managed to do this. So as a final part of the formal program, I'm going to introduce 6 members of NEI staff. But rather than give you a lecture, we've asked each of them to do a mini TED Talk. So they're going to each talk for about 4 minutes about a project that they're working on, something that's important to them in the job, and to try to explain to you why it's important to them. I think that'll give you a better and fuller understanding of what we're about and what we're doing and why we've survived 20 years. Before I introduce them, I just want to again thank and acknowledge the board of directors that are here, those that couldn't make it, the former board members, and I especially want to just give a shout out to 2 former board members, Kyle McKinney and Gloria Moese, who really supported me and the organization when times were toughest. So they're not here today, but they're definitely on my mind. I'd like to give a heartfelt thanks to the sponsors, so I think we can make that work. There we go. NEI, and here are our gold sponsors, our silver sponsors, and our bronze sponsors. I just want to say I was really moved by how many of you all just responded to a simple request that you help support this program tonight and that you come. So thank you very much. And finally, I just want to shout out to a few key staff members who made this event happen today. Deborah Hall, who used all of her years of planning events to get this to happen. Monica Zagola, who has been with us now for about 8 years and who manages all the things behind the scenes that nobody ever sees, but none of this would work without her. And Linda Frayling and Michelle Moran, who really did yeoman's work to get all of the details of this right and get us here, the posters, the slideshows, and so. And finally, you're sitting on some comment cards, and if the spirit moves you, write something that you think we should be working on, or some comment about what you're thinking, and there's a basket outside, and drop them in as you leave. So without further ado, I'll ask our TED Talkers to come up, and I'll introduce them. So we have Tom Chase, who will go first. Tom's a senior project manager. He's an amazing colleague who leads many of our advanced green building projects and has spearheaded much of our resiliency work. His breadth of understanding of this field is so astounding that basically in the office, when you don't know what the answer to a question is, you go ask Tom. Joshua Galloway, senior project manager. Josh is an accomplished architect whose passion for green design is only matched by his dedication to helping communities. He heads our work in Maryland, and you're going to really enjoy watching him give the southern tinged approach to environmental advocacy. Ashley Wissey is senior project manager and the dean of our project management team. She's definitely the person in the office that I always go to and say, Ashley, does this shirt match with these pants? When she's, I know. When she's not doing triathlons or long-distance canoe rides, she's managing many of our green certification projects up and down the East Coast. Wen Xiao is an energy modeler. Wen has worked tirelessly to try to bring us into the 21st century. He's an accomplished architect as well, and with expertise in historic preservation. And Wen's patience with the staff and with all of you folks is extraordinary, because you keep changing his models, and he never complains. And just Neil Donnelly's an energy engineer. He's a professional engineer, a sailor, a dart champion. Neil's got a combination of compassion and willingness to spend hours in boiler rooms that's really unparalleled. Those characteristics have really both enhanced our technical work and made NEI a really good place to work. And Jonah DeCola, last but not least, plumber, safety expert, renewable energy, building science, HVAC wonk, raconteur. None of us know where all of Jonah's expertise came from. But we couldn't do this without him. So you're going to enjoy this. So take it away, Tom.
All right. Thanks, Ed. And you should know that we all volunteered for this. So the organization that Ed and Lauren and everyone else built is really a special place to work. So I want to talk to you about, recently we held a retreat, a staff retreat, to think about where we've been and where we're going as an organization. And one of the activities we did was we polled ourselves and we said, what motivates us? And unsurprisingly, one of the big answers was climate change. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about my personal journey in climate change advocacy and where that's taken me. In my own journey, I've long debated whether we should be focusing on mitigation and reducing emissions or adaptation and preparing for the worst. And for a long time, I thought that meant two different ways of building buildings. One of the things I've learned at New Ecology is that mitigation and adaptation actually go hand in hand. And sometimes the best way to build is to accomplish both. So you don't need me to elaborate on the risks if we fail to mitigate and adapt, but indulge me one example close to home, my own home, which...
I got it.
Oh, excellent, thank you. Which, here it is. So I live on the top floor of a 1907 triple-decker wood frame in Cambridge. Original windows, no insulation, No active ventilation, but lots of passive ventilation. And it's a great spot, but it describes a lot of our building stock right now. So this July, I monitored the temperature and humidity in my unit. And I monitored it and I compared it to the heat index that NOAA uses when doing weather forecasting to see what's the feels like temperature in my space. So in July, the feels like temperature exceeded extreme caution or danger for 19 days. That's today. This isn't, climate change. This is climate change, but we have a lot more to come, right? The highest heat index was 111 degrees. So that's not shocking to Joshua in Baltimore, but it's pretty shocking to us in Cambridge. And it's important to remember that by mid-century, Cambridge will have Baltimore's present-day climate. So nearly half of the housing units in Cambridge look like mine. That's all the bad news. But the good news is that we know what to do about it. So in my neighborhood right across town, we're building this 98-unit affordable multifamily passive house. It'll have radically low energy use and emissions, but it will also be adapted for future climates so that the residents can survive and thrive long into the future. And success isn't limited to new construction. Elsewhere in the region and beyond, we've partnered with all of you to do numerous rehab projects, new construction projects, where we've reduced emissions, we've improved resilience, we've improved quality of life, and so many more projects in the works. So my message is, it's not mitigate or adapt. Let's do both. And I just want to thank you for your leadership enabling us to do this good work.
Hello, and thank you all very much for coming tonight. I'm Joshua Galloway, and I'm here as one of 4 members of New Ecology in the Mid-Atlantic, and I come to you from the future. The future of a New England that experiences heat and humidity that we experience in Baltimore. The question really is, why does that matter? And what can we do about it? And the answer is, New Ecology is here to help. I first heard about New Ecology in 2005 when I was a Rose Fellow with Enterprise in Richmond, Virginia, and read the cost and benefits of green affordable housing. New Ecology was one of the first groups that was looking at hard data to promote green affordable housing as a necessity and as a possibility. When I met Ed Connolly, he described New Ecology as an entrepreneurial nonprofit. And in the Mid-Atlantic, we're taking that charge of entrepreneurism and have a couple ideas we'd like to share with you tonight. Moisture management for resident health is one of our focuses. Last winter, Jonah and I were at a property that was built in the 1980s. It was experiencing heavy mildew and moisture issues. And so we interviewed residents and staff, and Jonah spent some time in the HVAC closet, and I crawled around behind the appliances trying to find the sump pumps, which were there, but hard to find. We realized during these field excursions that there's a lot more to learn about how buildings and residents affect one another and how we can learn more about indoor air quality. We're currently looking at smart monitoring and ventilation control to enhance building performance and occupant health. As we build high-performance buildings, moisture control becomes more and more important. A developer we work with in Delaware told us that recently he had to remove all the drywall in an apartment that was built a couple years ago because of moisture and mildew issues. And in fact, in Delaware, the QAP just required this past year that all apartments had to have a standalone dehumidifier as part of the apartment. Second, we need to tackle resilience planning at all scales. We have the great fortune to work with the State Housing Authority in Delaware. Get the next, yes. In Delaware on a first in the nation resilience, risk and resilience planning assessment. And so we're looking at 200 properties that are funded by the state. And ranking them in order of kind of the level of risks that they could experience due to climate change. And we came and met with our clients a couple weeks ago, and we presented a PowerPoint to the staff. And the presentation started out with us speaking to them and ended up with the property management folks, the asset management folks, and the construction folks having a dialogue about which property was going to be affected in which way and what they could do to deal with it. And that is a dream. That's exactly what we'd like our role to be as an enabler of problem solving. The climate science is pretty clear. We're going to get more water, more heat, and stronger winds. The changes will impact greatly the at-risk and underserved communities. Our deliverable is a toolkit to address climate risk and resiliency, both for existing projects that could be going through refinance or for future projects they're trying to determine suitable funding directions for the state. And lastly, we're working on the next chapter for our version of the triple-decker, and that's the row home. The row home in Wilmington and Philadelphia and Baltimore is one of the main housing types, and it's a great source of naturally affordable housing and a great center of embodied carbon and energy. In Baltimore, there are more than 17,000 vacant row homes. New Ecology is trying to figure out replicable ways to provide green technical assistance to support the row home renovation programs that are being advanced by cities and CDCs and land banks. We met with one healthcare organization that is very focused on health. They run a hospital and have rental housing in the same community. It's ideal because they know the neighbors, they understand the need for green and healthy homes. And that's really the biggest challenge, is finding the right partners and resources to get started. A client recently told me that you get into some exciting things, and we really do. And that's really one of the best things about working here. I'd like to thank you all, our partners, for helping us define what community-based sustainable development looks like for New Ecology's third decade. Thank you.
All right, good evening, everyone. I promise my speech is on this phone. I'm not Snapchatting. So, my name is Ashley Wissey. I know most of you in the room, but not everybody. I'm going to set the stage by leading with my credentials. So when I was promoted to senior project manager, those are not my credentials. When I was promoted to senior project manager, I had a bit of a unique problem. As we get new business cards at New Ecology, Monica gives us a mock-up and sends them to us and makes sure we approve them before printing them out. I had too many letters after my name. It took up far too many lines, and it was a little obnoxious. To be fair, I have 4 out of the 5 LEED accredited professional certifications, and I'm hoping to get the 5th sometime soon. But why LEED? Some people think, well, everybody knows what LEED is. It's the most recognized building certification, so it makes sense. But for me, it was always a bit more than that. It might have been a little bit because I really enjoy checklists. I really enjoy being able to, at the end of the day, have a score. But even beyond that, I want to talk about the benefits of what LEED has given us in the past 20 years. So the first version of LEED was released in 1998, right about the time New Ecology got its start. And ever since then, LEED has really affected the manufacturing industry. It's also helped the building and design construction industry as a whole. Some of the changes that have happened, it opened the door for many, many other rating systems. Some of those rating systems are tailored towards just parking garages. Some are tailored towards health, making sure that building occupants are healthy and fit. And some of them are really pushing the boundaries of energy efficiency in building design, like passive house and net zero. It also pushed manufacturing and industry. A lot of our products these days have increased recycled content that wasn't there 20 years ago, and those products can then be recycled again after their use. We have reduced emissions and increased health within buildings. And lastly, we get product information data about the stuff that we use every day. And consumers are much more educated about what is healthy and what they want to see in products they're using. So around the time I started at New Ecology, I went to a presentation at Green Build. And the main goal of that presentation was what they were calling the end game for LEED. They were saying that the goal of LEED in the USGBC was to eventually become obsolete. And as someone who spent a lot of time memorizing credits, that was a bit surprising. So I continued listening, and where the presenter went was that they wanted to push buildings and push code and make the base code buildings so energy efficient and so healthy that there was no reason to have rating systems that required anything beyond that. So since that time, I've tried to keep that with me and kind of focus on that whenever I get frustrated with the USGBC, which is often. So what now? What's going to happen in the next 20 years for rating systems? They may not be obsolete within 20 years, although that's certainly a lofty goal that we can all help with. But we can also help them get to that end goal. We have things like data now. We can measure the utility usage and make sure those LEED certified buildings are actually operating efficiently, or maybe not so much. And hopefully in the near future, those LEED ratings will become expired if those buildings are not operating efficiently. And we can show and prove that all that hard work that went into it is actually working. So myself and others here at New Ecology look forward to our partnership with all of you in the room and pushing both LEED and other rating systems to the end game. Thank you.
I'm not sure which one of us is next. Nope. Great. Hello. My name is Neil. I'm an energy engineer, and I've been with New Ecology for 7 years now. Still my first job out of college, and a big thank you to Ed for taking the chance on me. I think it's paid off really well. Monitoring and optimizing are both things that, as a super data-focused company, we've been doing all along, gathering as much data on a building as we can in order to shape how we approach and lead a building through a more efficient renovation. But then about 5 years ago, I had my first steps into the project that we now call REMO, Remote Monitoring and Optimization. At that time, we were focusing on heating systems, domestic hot water systems, and tightening up how these systems were performing. 5 years ago, I was packing up a cooler every morning with sandwich supplies for my buddy Cody and myself. And I'd walk out my apartment door carrying a classic wobbly tower full of boxes of wire, temperature sensors, and monitoring devices. Our goals were to save energy and also to not pass out in a 105-degree mechanical room. And every time that there was, in fact, a door that led from that mechanical room out to the fall fresh air, that was a little miracle in 2014 for me. At the time, we'd walk into a building with very little info, and we need to figure out there on the spot what we should be monitoring, how to install it, and hope that we can get it all wired and operational before we have to complete this same dance at a second mysterious site that same day. +20 years ago, a building would have a super, and I like to think they'd be sitting in this chair right here. They would live in the building, operate those systems, hear complaints. They would feel and live and try to fix those complaints. And over the course of a career with a building, you'd have a super and a building who had reached a level of understanding and mutual respect which no one else possessed. These days, we've seen maintenance positions becoming jobs with higher rates of turnover, and maintenance staff being responsible for a larger number of buildings. Plus, we have the still ongoing transition to almost every device in a mechanical room being smart or connected in some way. This means that for most buildings, we're seeing systems become more complex and increasingly finicky at the same time that maintenance personnel are being stretched too thin to have time to be able to actually listen to a building and understand how it works. What we set out to do with Remo was save energy. We knew it was out there to be saved, and we've been successful at collecting those savings. What we didn't see early on is how we would become the stewards of a building's knowledge along the way. How we'd become like a virtual super. Remo lives in the building, soaking up the knowledge and understanding of a building. And like a super, it also has memory. For buildings that no longer have that long-term staff position, or for owners whose staff need to cover more territory, we're able to help them construct the knowledge that it takes to get and keep their system coordinated, keep their fancy new equipment communicating and working together. 5 years ago, many of you in the room who trusted us with your buildings may have been thinking that we were the next in a long line of folks trying to install something else in your mechanical room, trying to get things working together. But now, 5 years later, I can see how we're becoming really a long-term ally of those operating the building. And we're doing that by keeping it simple, telling the story of what we're seeing, what it means to us, what we're changing, and what we think the result will be. Those have all been important pieces to New Ecology's process, and being open and outward with the wealth of knowledge we've been able to gain has already impacted how a building is managed, repaired, and upgraded. Monitoring and optimization started with the goal of saving energy, and energy savings are going well. And so too is the sharing of information back to owners, back to operators, to help us all hear what this building is really saying to us.
Hi, good evening. My name is Wen. So Qingwen Xiao is my full name, but everyone in my company call me Wen. So I'm an energy modeler at New Ecology. As an energy modeler, I take architect's design and build a time machine to predict the performance of the future building using mathematics and physics models. Many of you may have never seen me before, because I'm the guy who sits behind the computers all day long. And rarely do I attend client meetings. Therefore, I'm glad that today I have this opportunity to share my experience with you. Tonight, I'm going to put in my 2 cents about simulation tools and energy modeling. But first, I would like to start with the famous building at Harvard University. Oh, yes. This building was designed by a Swiss-French architect, Le Corbusier. This is a Carpenter Center for the Visual Arts, built in 1960s for Harvard. So this building is regarded as a textbook architecture masterpiece. It's equipped with one of Le Corbusier's famous design inventions, which is called brise-soleil, that thing. The term brise-soleil refers to sun breakers, which are the concrete shading structures around the windows. These shading structures, they were developed to prevent excessive solar heat gains. I was curious about the effectiveness of brise soleil, so I created models to study the brise soleil. However, the results were very kind of disappointing. These shading devices, they did little to decrease the energy use of the building. With all the good intentions, Le Corbusier's design failed because his design ideas were never verified nor optimized using simulation tools. So if Le Corbusier had a chance to hire me, the building will perform much better. Unlike in Le Corbusier's time, today we're fortunate because simulation tools have become a wide range of, there's a wide range of application in the industry. And energy simulation results, they are now required by energy code agencies and a lot of green building programs to demonstrate savings. Simulation tools can offer more benefits beyond code compliance. These tools provide measurable results which enable the design team to compare all kinds of design features. At New Ecology, simulation tools are used to study shades, the building orientations, optimize HVAC design, study envelope assemblies, predict energy consumption, and perform life cycle analysis. The advent of simulation software does not come without challenges. There are hundreds of simulation tools and a dozen of rating programs in the market right now. It is common that I have to create multiple models using different software for one project. Like this project, we have used 2 different software just in order to satisfy modeling requirements for different rating systems. But to me, the biggest challenge is actually speed. So modelers simply are not fast enough. Last year at an ASTRA Energy Modeling Conference, I went to a panel discussion full of architects. They tried to tell us what they think about energy models. All the panelists, they expressed frustration because the modelers could not work faster. So how do we overcome these current challenges? What will the future be for simulation and modeling? So automation could be a key to aggressively trim down modeling time. As researchers in the field suggest, speeding up is possible if modelers start to operate like software programmers. So New Ecology is taking on these challenges right now, and we are gradually building up a reservoir of computer scripts and Excel macros using Visual Basics and Python to increase our work efficiency. Simulation tools like Energy Plus improves rapidly day after day. Hopefully in the near future, we will be able to perform real-time simulation. The architects can therefore instantly understand the energy implication of their design. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Jonah DeCola, and my title is Senior Energy Engineer. I wanted to work for New Ecology for a long time before I was hired. The desire began when I was getting into very big trouble. At the time, I was building a mixed-use, multi-unit, accessible project for disabled homeless individuals. With hubris, I decided that any affordable housing must be energy efficient and began implementing no-cost change orders enrolled the project into U.S. Green Building Council's first Massachusetts LEED for Homes in their pilot program, all without the approval of the architect. The other win-win that I decided that everybody should like was turning the project into a paid classroom of construction skills for formerly incarcerated 18 to 24-year-olds that were high school dropouts. Despite having secured a performance bond, the development's funders, they were not overjoyed with my creativity. Especially with the qualifications of my construction crew. They were somewhat mollified when I pointed out that all the instructors were experts, including Bob Vila's master carpenter, Bob Riley. Dropping names sometimes helps. At the time of this project in 2005, energy efficiency was hippie counterculture, and employing unskilled job seekers was way out of style. Like, so far out of style, I think the WPA was disbanded in 1943. I felt alone and misunderstood. And finding New Ecology's publication, The Cost and Benefits of Green Affordable Housing, was so important. It was so heartening to know that I wasn't alone. I immediately called Ed and invited him over to the job, and was luckily hired only 9 years later. Either I wasn't very impressive, or you were slow. By the way, the project was successfully completed under budget. The workers are all now middle class, solidly. The city of Boston learned that even unskilled workers can build to LEED standards, and now requires LEED certifiability on all multifamily housing. Bob Riley is now the Director of Construction, building green homes at Habitat for Humanity in Cape Cod. For myself, I'm happy to have found work where sometimes unique ideas are welcomed. Since starting at New Ecology, mobile technology has become a ubiquitous part of everyday life, and it's changing the way that we offer advice to the clients that we serve. We've created a system to affordably capture data on sustainability, resiliency, healthy environments, and energy efficiency, and we openly share our findings with facilities and operations and service provider teams so we can jointly solve problems. Meeting the challenge posed by the influx of data from devices requires a multidisciplinary team to do it right. That's New Ecology. We're researchers, mechanics, plumber, engineers, software developers, information technologists, building scientists, statisticians. I've missed so many, but a lot of things. And the possibilities of what we can achieve with the ever-evolving sensor technologies seems unlimited. It's very exciting, and the business case is strong. In order to meet our significant climate challenges head-on, it's also important that regulatory agencies implement standards on existing green building performance. New York City, for instance, just passed a bill that created the Office of Building Energy Performance to monitor compliance and levy penalties for the failure to hit mandated 40% reduction in emissions from existing buildings by 2030, and by 2050, 80%. Our remote monitoring service has been preparing for this. We have a framework to implement technologies into the workflow of existing maintenance operations, and our data collection provides feedback to measure to see if our suggestions actually work. We're getting better every day. We can measure reduction in real time. The data suggests that I've been learning a lot. Looking ahead 20 years. Do you remember Life Alert? You know, I've fallen and I can't get up. Am I too old for? No, we don't. Yeah. Well, we have that for boilers now. And we'll soon integrate sensors for water conservation, air quality, and providing all this remote monitoring at a price that affordable housing providers can afford, nonprofits can afford. That's where we're headed. That's our goal. That's what we're doing. Operating our built environment is one of the biggest risks for all of our futures. So I say let's not fall down on the job of making affordable housing efficient, durable, and healthy together. Thank you.
Now you know why I like this job. Thank you all for sharing. That was awesome. Let's give them another round of applause. So we hope that these snippets of what we're doing give you some food for thought. If you have anything to add, please write them on the comment cards on your chairs. Please stay a while longer. We have food and drink, and the guitarists from Zoomix, who's a local music school in East Boston, are playing for us. There are also small tokens of appreciation to take on your way out. There's New Ecology mugs and some tote bags, and also some 20 bulbs for 20 years so that you can plant in your garden and think of us every spring. So thank you all for coming, and please enjoy the rest of the party.
Thank you.